So, yeah, as Sejal already said, I'm presenting counterfactually, or what we can learn from science to evaluate impact of public goods funding. So, impact is, in a simplified term, something that happened, so your project X that happened, minus then what if your project never would have happened. That difference would be impact. And the counterfactual is this: what if X never happened? It's basically a time traversal back. Okay, you have to consider if your project never started, what would the world look like? That's of course impossible. But sometimes when we are in our field here and we're hearing impact evaluations very difficult and very fussy, that is because we cannot evaluate that counterfactual precisely. I feel like we are in the community where we have so much data, very truthful data that we collect every block, that we should be able to use that data to get some kind of a precise language or answer to that counterfactual of what if X never happened. And so we looked into science, and in economics, for more than 10 years, they've been using synthetic control, which is trying to generate a synthetic time travel of a world where your project never happened. So this is the formula, but let me walk you through like an example. So in synthetic control, let's assume this is kind of the daily active use addresses of like a blockchain over time. And then there's some kind of intervention, some kind of grants program that starts at this point. Maybe this is optimism, right? The red balloon. And so you want to understand what would have happened to optimism's daily active addresses if this intervention never happened. So naturally what you would do is you would look at the nearest neighbors of optimism, maybe other L2s like Arbitrum or CK-Sync, and see if maybe they, because they probably didn't start that intervention, how are they behaving over time at the same period of time? But of course, nothing is similar to your chain, to Optimism itself. So the idea of synthetic control is to take the past pre-intervention data, try to map a weight for each of the chains that fits really well for what would have happened, and re-weight all your similar stuff such that you have a model of synthetic optimism. And that is basically what it is. And then you can have synthetic optimism in blue, how it would evolve in the model. And you can even evaluate how well the model is doing by how well it fits past data. And you look at basically what your model looks like after intervention, and that difference is the impact. And that impact is quite precise. For example, we did a small demo here for the residency where we built Counterfactually, which is a web app that you can explore. Here we want to understand the impact of STIP in Arbitrum that launched in 1st of December 2023. And we took lots of other control networks, Ethereum, Base, Polygon, Loopring, Metis, Optimism, and tons of predictors. And then we trained a synthetic control. And you can see the synthetic control here is Ethereum, 0.6% Ethereum, 22% CK-Sync, and 70% Optimism. And if we zoom into the intervention time here, the blue one is basically the control, and the red one is Arbitrum. You can see no difference. So this is quite stunning because STIP has spent 50 million ARP to incentivize daily active addresses to be continued up. And you can see that it actually kind of looks like it wouldn't have happened, like it would have happened already anyway, right? And funnily, when we're diving into this data, this is Grow the Pie data, we saw a spam address spamming 1 million active addresses, and that had more impact than STIP, considering synthetic control. So we have an app you can explore, counterfactually.org, also initial API. It's just to play around with this kind of methodology. And really, there's a lot of counterfactuals in our space that we can use this methodology to answer questions like, for example, what would Arbitrum's growth look like if token X never launched? Or what if Protocol Guild was not the source of funding for ETH core devs? Or what would regions' deforestation rates look like if it was never funded? And many more. And actually, the refi project question, that is where my initial motivation for that came from. So Shafi and I, we are running Gainforce.earth, which is a non-profit in the DeSci refi space. And we work with 28 communities around the world that protect forests. And we want to understand if that project never happened, would that forest be still standing? And so we're using similar looking project sites, looking at the deforestation rates and creating synthetic controls out of that to estimate the impact of these projects. And I want to also give you another insight of how science could be used very well to understand mechanisms and how we can learn from science to maybe guide us to designing better funding mechanisms. One of the things, because we love product funding, we love Gitcoin. We have been a grantee for many rounds, and we care a lot about this space. And if you look at the Gitcoin QF formula, that's the matching point, right? Like you basically do the square root sum of all the contributions, and that's it. And that works really well in the paper of Glenn, Zoe, and Vitalik, when we assume that the contributions given by the donors are kind of a proxy to the true value of the project, right? But we have all participated in Gitcoin rounds, and we know it's nowadays kind of a marketing game. And that is because that's a very simple model. Assume that actually the contributions are not a proxy to the true value of the project, but the contributions are a proxy to the perceived value, which is the true value plus some kind of marketing effort, M with like some E, right? So if that's the case, then credit funding is cool, but has a big marketing problem. Because if you look at it, how the matching fund is now calculated, if you just plug in the formula, you can see that the quadratic formula accidentally makes marketing even double worse, because it's inside that matching. So it's a very strong benefit. So basically you do a little bit of marketing and you get like double boost. And that's just simply the math. And so looking at the math, we need something that equally guides away from marketing. And so impact evaluation is, I believe, a core element which our community needs to discuss, not just as a nice and good to have, but as something that should be baked into the protocol, into the funding mechanism itself. So if you look at it, we could propose something like impact quadratic funding that simply calculates a weight score on each contribution based on the projects. And that impact score could be calculated from different kind of metrics, as Raymond said, from synthetic control in the beginning, and it would help us coordinate away from a marketing arms race to some kind of impact maximization game which we want to play. And also, kudos to Protocol Labs and Filecoin as well, and that has been mentioned already by Raymond in the past. Like, this is not a new idea. This has been thought through with PL's networks goods research in generalized impact evaluators very early on with great work. So at Counterfactually, we've been thinking about this as well. So we have kind of our first MLP, minimal lovable product, and we are adding now more data sources into it such that you can analyze this and play with the front end. We also want to build this impact passport that gives you just a single number that maybe other protocols can use to just multiply for matching, or just helps decision makers decide which of the projects gets more funds or not. And then we hope that this impact passport and this kind of like new kind of economics like that we bring into our space can help us improve our existing mechanisms. So that's the team. It wouldn't be possible without them. As said, from the funding the Commons residency. And if you want to contribute, support us, here's a QR code to the Telegram chat. Send us your data, submit your research ideas, or just vibe with us. Thanks a lot.